Friends of the Low Country Lowline organized 6 years ago with the goal of making the abandoned railroad corridor running down the middle of Charleston Peninsula a centerpiece for the city. We could see it become a new social corridor, a valuable connector on the city's spine, a place to walk, bike, and meet friends. Often there were doubts about whether it could ever happen. If we failed, it could be chopped up and sold off piecemeal. But finally, late last year, the Friends of the Low Country Lowline succeeded, teaming up with the city of Charleston to close the deal. Now, what's next? There's a new memorandum of understanding that structures our partnership with the city. It states the mission well. Together, we intend to transform the Lowline into a publicly accessible open space capable of accommodating cyclists and pedestrians, to assist in reknitting neighborhoods, addressing recurrent flooding, relieving traffic, and providing open space, recreation, and connectivity to planned and existing parks, neighborhoods, and greenways within the city. Our next job is to develop a master plan for the Lowline. The historic rail corridor is on some of the highest ground on the Charleston Peninsula. On this map, the light blue section is the section purchased from Norfolk Southern. The pinkish section below it will be the Lowline extension, reaching Marion Square through agreements with its various owners. When we say the Lowline can assist in reknitting neighborhoods, it touches no fewer than 6. It is a diverse collection of neighborhoods with multiple ethnic groups, young families, millennials, and more. For comparison's sake, this is the High Line in New York City. It is a great social location, a place for people to gather, to hang out. It is really an urban garden. Because it is elevated above the city streets, it isn't used much as a transportation corridor. It has become a huge tourist attraction with around 7 million visitors annually. This now is the 606 in Chicago. Another spectacular community asset, providing recreation and beauty where there was previously an abandoned railroad. It is relatively narrow, and people on foot and on bicycles are not separated from each other. Now, this is the Beltline in Atlanta, 22 miles in length, being finished in sections, fantastically popular, transforming neighborhoods and turning this car-dependent place into a much better city. Finally, another spectacularly well-run park, Bryant Park in New York, right behind the New York Public Library in the middle of Manhattan. Publicly owned but privately operated, with restaurants and other concessions generating plenty of money for operations. In the 80s, it was known as a Needle Park. Now it's a great place to visit, to hang out. Now we take you to the actual Lowline, all partly cleaned up with its tracks and ties removed only recently. We're holding off on any actual design until we have plenty of input from all of our neighbors. But just to give you a sense of what it could be, and to jumpstart the design discussions, we have imagined it in several spots along the route. First, here is a new big development between Line and Columbus Streets, fronting on Meeting Street. The Lowline runs along the back of the building, where there's another important entrance to it. Here is one way to look at it, with a cycle path running parallel to but separated from the pedestrian route. Now back to the same spot, still a more or less blank canvas for the Lowline. Here is another way to imagine the same place. Plenty of trees and flowers with places to walk, places to run, places to meet for a drink or a snack. Concessions, by the way, could be an important way for us to generate revenue to support the Lowline. Now we move further north to a less congested, somewhat less urban setting just north of Hugie Street, between the William Enston housing complex on the left and elevated I-26 on the right. This is a wide section, and here we try one imagining, once again for safety, separating people riding bikes from people walking. This is not a design, but an imagining, for the purpose of starting conversations about the actual design. Now we jump further south again, looking southward toward Line Street. This is the widest section of the Low Line, suitable for much more than bike and pedestrian traffic, perhaps like music and art events. There is room here for paths, certainly, but for a gathering spot. The structure to your right could be for musical events or for whatever the community decides it wants here. Note the art on the overpass in the distance. The Low Line will be an active park. Activities and concessions can generate interest and income. The public can participate in the design and help build and maintain it by making contributions. But there are also a number of public-private mechanisms, including Business Improvement District and tax increment financing. In the Business Improvement District model, the adjacent businesses pay fees to support the park because it helps their businesses. The Tax Increment Financing District captures a percentage of taxes whose growth is driven by the success of the park itself. And of course, there are opportunities for sponsorships and naming rights. Now, the Friends of the Low Country Low Line are moving on to the next phases of work, the preparations for a master plan. Assembling a community outreach committee, the aim is to include all neighborhood associations, churches, nonprofits, and businesses to get their views on what they want from the Low Line.